Something you might notice as I scroll around on this page. Two things really. First, the stacked nav pills on the right-hand side of the page always stay in the same position on the right-hand side of the page. They never scroll out of view. And as I'm scrolling, the active item in the list becomes highlighted. So when I'm on the bottom of the page, carousel is highlighted, and when I'm on the top of the page, the buttons link is highlighted. This actually requires no JavaScript code on my part, just some careful planning to set up the Bootstrap scroll spy. The navigation menu that you see on the right is down here in the bottom of the page, and it's something we've seen before. It's just a nav pills. The nav class is used for all the navigation components. Nav pills gives us a rounded background on the selected item, and nav stacked gives us a vertical list of items. We saw that when we talked about components in the last module. What's new here is the affix class, which essentially gives that element a fixed position so it stays on the viewport no matter where I'm scrolling. The important part for scroll spy, which is the component that's synchronizing the active element with the user's scroll position in the page, is that all of the menu items inside of here point to DOM elements that exist on the page. For example, the carousel menu item has an href of carousel, pound carousel, and if we look on the page, we will find an H2 with an ID of carousel. Scroll spy is examining the page and examining those menu items and figuring out what has come into view, and it's finding the right menu item to set active. It's doing all of that for us. So in addition to adding the correct DOM elements in the places that you want them and having those referenced in the menu items, the other piece that you need for this to work correctly is up here at the top, the data-spy attribute. You can add this on any container element, but typically it's going to be on the body. That activates the scroll spy, and then data-target is telling the scroll spy essentially where do the navigation elements exist that I need to update. In this case, we're saying that they are in an element with a class of navspy. And if I go back down to the bottom, I can see indeed the container element for my menu, for my navigation menu, is inside of a section with the class of navspy. So that's how all that works. And this target can update pretty much any sort of navigational component. In fact, I could make my navbar on the top update also if I give it a class of navspy. The problem here being that this is currently a static navbar, so it's going to scroll off the screen and I can't really see what's selected. So let's fix that up. Remember, we can also build a navbar fixed to the top, but when we do fix the navbar to the top, it's going to be a fixed position element. We typically need to give the body some margin to push our content down and make sure it's not underneath of the navbar. And now with the fixed position navbar and a navspy class applied, let me save this and refresh. Now as I start scrolling, you can see both menus are updating. But if you look very closely, modal doesn't really seem to update until modal scrolls off the top of the screen. Sort of the same thing with tooltips. There's a way to fix that. When we're doing this sort of margin top here, we need to give the scroll spy a hint that it needs to offset things by a certain number of pixels in its calculation. Do that with data-offset. And if I save this and refresh the page, we should get a little bit of behavior. Modal is now highlighted when it's still on the screen and the text is on the screen. Same with tooltips, scroll spy, and so forth. Scroll spy can be a little bit finicky, but if you use that offset, you can tweak it so that things are highlighted when they appear where you want them.